Hello, this is Storyal. The video you are about to see is about a woman who was taken from a public place, driven hundreds of miles, and locked inside a concrete cell hidden in a residential garage in Oregon, and survived with nothing but sheer will and her bare hands. Some moments in this story are reconstructed from federal court records, law enforcement reports, and survivor testimony. This story is presented without graphic detail, but the events it describes may be unsettling for some. Viewer discretion is advised. If real disappearances and impossible escapes fascinate you, you'll want to subscribe. The door was never meant to open from the inside. It was metal, heavy, installed backward on purpose. No handle, no latch, no mechanism that could be reached from within. And yet, in the quiet of a residential Oregon neighborhood, a woman forced her way through it, bleeding, shaking, and running into the morning air, knowing that the next few seconds might decide whether she lived. She was injured, disoriented, far from home. And the most frightening detail would only become clear later. The space she escaped from wasn't improvised in panic. It was constructed in advance. This was not a locked room. It was a cell. This is the story of Oregon garage cell escape. Klamath Falls sits in southern Oregon, near the California border, surrounded by high desert, long highways, and wide distances between towns. It is the kind of place where isolation doesn't announce itself, it simply arrives. For most residents, it is just another small city. But for someone brought there against their will, the geography itself becomes part of the trap. Federal investigators say the events that led here began earlier in the summer of 2023. Hundreds of miles north in Seattle, Washington. According to the FBI, a man later identified as Negasi Zuberi, who also used other names, approached a woman while posing as an undercover law enforcement officer. He allegedly showed her a badge. At one point, authorities say, he held a taser, placed her in handcuffs and leg restraints, and forced her into the back seat of his vehicle. Authority changes how people read danger. It lowers defenses before fear has time to fully form. What might otherwise trigger resistance can instead create compliance, especially at night in unfamiliar surroundings or when someone appears to represent the law. But this was not a lawful detention. What began as a routine encounter turned into a nightmare within minutes. Zuberi's deception was deliberate and calculated. And what followed was not just an assault, but the beginning of a journey that would end in one of the most harrowing escapes FBI agents have seen in recent years. Instead of taking her to a police station or releasing her, Zuberi drove south, charging across state lines for roughly 450 miles, transporting the woman from Washington into Oregon. It was an all-day drive. Hours passed. Landscapes changed. Familiarity disappeared. And by the time the vehicle stopped, she was in a place she did not choose and could not recognize. That distance matters. It is the reason federal authorities took the lead. Interstate kidnapping transforms a crime from a local emergency into a national investigation, expanding both the urgency and the scale. When they reached Klamath Falls, investigators say Zuberi brought the woman to a rented house and locked her inside a structure he had built in the garage. The cell was austere and unforgiving. It was a makeshift cell constructed from cinder blocks, sealed with a metal security door installed in reverse, specifically so it could not be opened from the inside. There was no natural light, no windows, no clear escape point. The concrete absorbed sound. Even screaming would travel poorly, first through the cell, then through the garage, then through the house. The house itself did not stand out. A driveway, a garage. Neighbors close enough to see the front door, but far enough away that sounds behind concrete walls would likely go unnoticed. This detail would later matter deeply to investigators. Because the cell wasn't improvised. It wasn't built in a moment of panic. The reverse door alone made that clear. It was engineered to function as a one-way barrier, easy to close, nearly impossible to defeat from inside. Once the door shut, the structure did the work. Inside the cell, time became disorienting. Hours passed, possibly longer. With no windows and no clock, the sun rose and fell beyond concrete walls she could not see. At first, she remained confined, doing the only thing she could, assessing her environment. There were no windows, no cracks, just solid concrete. She reached for the door, her hand met smooth metal where a handle should have been. No obvious handles. She tried again more carefully this time. Still nothing. In that moment, the reality of the situation began to settle. This was not a locked room created in panic. This was not something improvised. It was designed to keep someone in without needing constant supervision. Once the door closed, the structure itself became the restraint. Strength was not the solution here. Precision was. Concrete absorbs sound. Even if she called out, even if she screamed, the walls would swallow most of it. And beyond them was a garage. Beyond that, a closed door. Her mouth dry, her hands aching from the restraints, she realized that if she didn't act soon, she might never leave that space alive. Survival instinct flickered, then ignited. She began to test the door again, not as something that might open, but as something that might fail. She felt metal bars within it, and it became the focus. Welded joints. Seams. Places where repeated force might weaken what strength could not immediately break. With nothing but her hands and sheer will, she began striking the metal bars and door frame. Again, and again, and again. Minutes stretched into what must have felt like hours. Pain surged. Blood pooled on her knuckles. But she kept going. Beating at steel with bare hands is not just painful, it is punishing. Her knuckles split, her wrists burned. Every strike was agony. Yet survival wasn't just a hope, it became a burning necessity. Inside the cell, every second was measured against fear. Fear of discovery, fear of worsening injuries, fear of permanent entrapment. Still, she kept hammering those welds, ignoring every screaming sinew and nerve. Metal does not fail all at once. It bends, it loosens, it fatigues. Each blow echoed in the concrete room. Small fractures appeared. Welds weakened. And then, they began to break. A weld cracked. Not enough to escape. Not enough to matter, except that it proved the door was not invincible. That realization changed everything. She kept on beating. Hours passed. Or maybe less. It was difficult to tell. Every movement cost strength. Every strike sent pain through her already injured hands. But the opening grew slowly, almost invisibly, until it was finally large enough. This was not a single moment of triumph. It was persistence under pressure. She climbed through it. But escaping the cell was not the same as escaping the situation. Bruised and bleeding, she emerged into the garage, then fled the property, climbing over a wooden fence as blood trailed from her injured hands. The seconds that followed were among the most dangerous. She was exposed, visible, unsure how close the threat might be behind her. Then, she flagged down a passing motorist who dialed 911 immediately. Her rescue call was the spark that ignited a nationwide response. With the victim safe and speaking to authorities, law enforcement swarmed to the Oregon property. Search warrants executed, the Klamath Falls residents revealed the makeshift cinder block cell, just as she had described. Inside, investigators found her purse, handwritten plans, and unsettling evidence of premeditation. Zuberi fled. The FBI quickly issued a nationwide alert for Zuberi. The following day, he was located in Reno, Nevada, where he was taken into custody after a confrontation with police in a parking lot. Court proceedings revealed that he had lived in multiple U.S. states over the previous decade and may be connected to assaults in at least 4 others. But the most important evidence had already been preserved: the cell itself. Because it showed something deeply unsettling, that someone had taken the time to design a space where a person could disappear quietly, without restraint, without struggle, without anyone noticing. In October 2024, he was convicted of these crimes and later sentenced to life in federal prison. What could have been a silent tragedy became a story of survival, a testament to human resilience in the face of calculated cruelty. Her decision to fight, tooth and nail, save her life and may have prevented future victims from suffering the same fate. For those who followed to the end, thank you for watching. If stories like this fascinate you, consider subscribing. There are a lot more coming. Until then, stay curious and stay safe out there.